She hasn't won a Grand Slam. So why does it feel like the tennis world is already treating her like she has? Because something unusual is happening right now in women's tennis, something that even former ATP giants are openly calling unprecedented. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why Alexandra Eala might be standing at the edge of something far bigger than just a top 10 debut. Over the past 6 months, the buzz around Alexandra Eala has gone from quiet promise to full-blown global conversation. Not because she lifted a major trophy, not because she suddenly jumped to world number 1, but because every time she walks into a stadium, the energy shifts. Let's start with a moment that made even skeptics pause. Early 2026, Dubai, quarterfinal stage. Alexandra Eala steps onto the court, ranked outside the elite circle world number 31, her career high at that point, respectable, promising, but not yet superstar territory. And then she does something that changes the tone of the conversation. She stuns higher-ranked opponents. She plays fearless tennis. She forces commentators to stop calling her the future and start calling her a problem. But here's where it gets interesting. The noise around Eala didn't start after Dubai. It was already building before that run. Matches selling out, tournament directors quietly upgrading her to center court slots, merchandise moving, social media exploding. That's when former ATP pros on the Nothing Major podcast John Isner, Sam Querrey, and Steve Johnson started asking a question many fans were thinking. Have we ever seen anything like this? Isner didn't hesitate. He said she's already a superstar by virtue of where she's from, and that's not an insult. That's recognition. Because Alexandra Eala represents something tennis hasn't fully tapped into before. Southeast Asia, a region with massive population, passionate sports fans, and relatively limited representation at the highest levels of tennis. When Eala steps on court, she's not just playing for ranking points. She's carrying a region hungry for a global icon, and that changes everything. Sam Querrey admitted he doesn't think we've ever seen hype like this before, a Grand Slam breakthrough. That's the key detail. Before, traditionally, tennis superstardom follows titles. You win a major, then the endorsements come, then the fame builds. Think about Jennifer Capriati. Think about Tracy Austin, teenage phenoms who shock the world by winning at impossibly young ages. The trophies came first, the celebrity followed. But with Alexandra Eala, the script feels flipped. Her celebrity surge is happening before the Grand Slam moment, and that's where the comparison to Naomi Osaka enters the conversation. Now let's be clear. This is comparison, not equivalence. Osaka earned her global recognition by beating Serena Williams on the biggest stage and stacking major titles. The results justify the spotlight. But what Isner pointed out is fascinating. Osaka had an enormous market behind her: Japan, global brands, crossover appeal. That market amplified her once she won. With Eala, the market is already roaring. She hasn't lifted a major trophy yet, but the demand is there. The audience is there. The belief is there. And here's where I'm going to give you my honest take. This isn't just hype, it's alignment. The sport is in transition. The WTA is searching for its next dominant storyline. There's parity, yes. There are stars, absolutely. But a player who can carry both competitive legitimacy and cultural significance? That's rare. Eala might be positioned perfectly in that gap. But here's the twist nobody is fully talking about yet. Hype can be oxygen, or it can be pressure. And we've seen both outcomes before. Let's talk about João Fonseca for a moment. The Brazilian teenager generating serious buzz on the ATP side. Massive fan base. National pride, expectations sky high. Sound familiar? Fonseca's rise has been electric, but it's also come with scrutiny. Every match dissected, every loss magnified. When you represent a tennis-hungry nation, the spotlight isn't gentle. Eala is entering that same territory. When she plays, it's not just another WTA match. It feels like a movement. But can she sustain it? That's the question lingering behind all the excitement. Because being the hottest draw on tour without a Grand Slam title creates a unique tension. If she wins big soon, the narrative becomes prophetic. If she stalls, the conversation shifts to pressure and expectation. And this is where her Dubai run becomes more important than the rankings suggest. Quarterfinals alone don't make a career, but the way she competed did. She didn't look overwhelmed. She didn't look like she was just happy to be there. She looked like she belonged. That body language matters. And here's something else I've noticed watching her matches. There's a calm intensity about her. She doesn't over-celebrate. She doesn't seem rattled by bigger names across the net. It's almost as if the crowd energy fuels her instead of suffocating her. That's not common at 20 years old. But let's slow down for a second and address the elephant in the room. Is this too much too soon? Because tennis history is filled with players who were labeled the next big thing and never quite crossed the final hurdle. The difference with Eala might be that her story isn't built solely on projections. It's built on connection. She has become relatable to a demographic that has rarely seen itself on center court. And that emotional connection creates loyalty that rankings alone cannot measure. Isner framed it perfectly when he contrasted her with past teenage champions. Those players shock the world with early titles. Eala is captivating the world with presence before the hardware. That's unconventional. And unconventional can either redefine the sport or create impossible standards. Here's my prediction. And yes, I'm putting it out there. If Alexandra Eala reaches even one Grand Slam semifinal in the next 12 months, the hype will explode beyond what we're seeing now. Not double, not triple, exponential. Because then the narrative clicks into place. Right now, the storyline is potential meeting popularity. Add a deep major run, and it becomes inevitability. And when inevitability meets market power, you get a global superstar. But if that semi-final doesn't come quickly, the tone may shift, not dramatically, but subtly. The questions will get sharper, the comparisons louder, the Osaka parallels more demanding. Speaking of Osaka, let's be fair. Osaka didn't just win, she won against legends. She delivered on the biggest stages under immense scrutiny. That's a high bar. Eala hasn't faced that defining moment yet, but she's inching closer. And the fact that former ATP veterans, guys who have seen every hype cycle imaginable, are openly saying this feels different? That's telling. They've watched prodigies flame out. They've seen social media stars fade. They don't throw around, "We've never seen anything like it," lightly. So what exactly makes this different? I think it's timing. Tennis is more global than ever. Streaming has expanded reach. Social platforms amplify narratives instantly. A player from Manila can ignite arenas in Europe because fans feel connected in real time. Eala isn't just growing through match wins, she's growing through visibility. And visibility in modern sports is currency. But here's the part that fascinates me most. She doesn't appear to be chasing the hype. In interviews, she remains measured, focused, grounded. That emotional stability might be her greatest weapon. Because when mania builds around a player, ego can creep in, distractions multiply, expectations distort priorities. If she stays disciplined, the ceiling becomes enormous. Let's imagine two scenarios. Scenario 1, she breaks into the top 20 by mid-season, reaches a Grand Slam quarterfinal, maybe even pushes into a semifinal. The tennis world will say, "We saw it coming." Sponsors will line up even more aggressively. Center court becomes standard. Scenario 2, results plateau. A few early exits. Ranking stagnates around 25 to 35. Suddenly, the narrative turns into, is the hype justified? That's the razor's edge she's walking. And honestly, I love it, because this is what makes sports compelling. Uncertainty, momentum, pressure, opportunity. Right now, Alexandra Eala is in that beautiful, dangerous phase where anything feels possible, and that's why the comparisons to Naomi Osaka and João Fonseca aren't lazy takes, they're signals. Signals that the sport recognizes a spark. But sparks don't guarantee fire. Here's the deeper question I want you thinking about. Is tennis ready for a superstar whose cultural impact outpaces her trophy cabinet? Because if Eala continues drawing crowds like this without a major title, the economics of stardom in tennis might shift. Historically, titles dictated marketability. Now, marketability may be influencing perception before titles arrive. That's a fascinating evolution, and it could redefine how young players are evaluated. So here's where I land. I don't think this is empty hype. I don't think this is a temporary social media wave. I think Alexandra Eala represents a convergence talent, timing, region, and personality aligning at once. But the next 12 months will define everything. One signature win on a Grand Slam stage could turn Eala Mania into a permanent chapter in tennis history. Miss that window, and she risks becoming a what-if story. Personally, I'm betting on her rising, because when seasoned pros start debating your global impact before you've cracked the top 10, that means something real is happening. And here's the question I want you to answer in the comments. Is Alexandra Eala's hype justified already, or does she need a Grand Slam breakthrough before we can call this the real deal? I genuinely want to know where you stand, because this conversation is just getting started, and trust me, if the Dubai run was a preview, the next chapter could be explosive. This is why we watch tennis, not just for trophies, but for moments when a player feels bigger than the scoreboard. Alexandra Eala might be stepping into that territory right now, and whether she converts that momentum into major glory, that's the story we're about to witness unfold. RedDust Report will be right here as it happens. Stay sharp, stay passionate, and I'll see you in the next one.